Hello, this is Dr. Darrell J. Callahan. I'm an osteopathic family physician, board certified by the American College of Osteopathic Family Physicians. And this is a review of the exhibits and references for the DO publication of Brotherhood of Veterans, published November 2024. As the rebels surrender, they say it went against us. This is a map, official map, of the Battle of Mine Creek, 25 October 1864, some 160 years ago. This is an important battle in the coming end of the Civil War. This color illustration, also accompanying the map, is from S.J. Reeder, who was a witness to this battle. He was a POW in the Confederacy, and he kept a very detailed diary, including these wonderful sketches. This one is in Volume 3 of Samuel Reeder's autobiography, and it depicts the Battle of Mine Creek, an engagement between the Union and the Confederate forces that took place in Kansas on October 25th, 1864, during the Civil War. It was immediately after the Battle of Westport, as the Confederacy had begun its retreat, and it becomes the largest cavalry engagement one of the largest cavalry engagements of the Civil War, and contributed to a Confederate retreat even further into Texas. After the battle, Union forces continued their pursuit of Price through Missouri and Arkansas, through Indian Territory and Oklahoma, and eventually the Confederacy in the West is to be no more. The Civil War will end in April of 1865. The title, "It Went Against Us," quotes a Confederate summary of the battle. This original color illustration is in Samuel Reeder's autobiography. And the official map there shows that and properly depicts that the red dashes of the Confederacy outnumber the blue dashes of the Union, probably 4-1. And 1,200 Confederate men end up surrendering as they can't cross this swollen river of the Osage River at Mine Creek. And the Union charge was timed perfectly to capture far more men than expected. In this battle is Andrew Taylor Still and his brother James Still. And he has 140 Confederates surrender to him, to his unit, and they come in under a flag of truce, and he honors this flag of truce and offers them shelter and food. The Still brothers were all veterans, and here we are 160 years later, approaching Veterans Day, and there's a wonderful story about their military service that ends up becoming a period of time that is very formative for them, including reconciliation of hard feelings throughout their adult life. In this photo, we consider this the Still brothers' reconciliation photo. You will see that on the left is Edward seated, and standing in between the two is the second eldest, James Still, and then seated on the right-hand side is, of course, Andrew Taylor Still, the third oldest son of the family. Andrew and James will serve together in 1864. In October of 1864, there's 15,000 men called up in Kansas, and they serve together in the 21st Regiment under the command of Sandy Lowe. And Colonel Sandy Lowe becomes very important to Andrew Taylor Still's in his life. He becomes one of his best adult friends. They have a friendship that spans well over 20 years. And it's a rather unique situation where a healer such as Andrew Taylor Still has a friendship with a commander of his unit, and includes a man that many would consider a killer. He had 40 enemy kills credited to him. So this wonderful healer has a relationship with a killer. And this is a picture of Sandy Lowe that hangs in the Chautauqua County Sheriff's Office in Sedan, Kansas. He was eventually the sheriff of that county in 1890. He writes a letter describing his relationship with the Still brothers during their time of service in the 21st Regiment. He writes this letter in 1866, so 2 years after the Civil War has come to an end, or 1 year after the Civil War has come to an end, 2 years after the Battle of Mine Creek and the Battle of Westport. In this letter, it's rather difficult to read, but I've underlined a few areas. This letter is April 22nd, 1866, from Colonel Sandy Lowe, and he's discussing the reorganization of the unit. The units after the Civil War were being realigned and reorganized, and they were doing a head count, and they were forming armories and counting the weapons and making sure that they had people in the right positions and the right rank. And he is writing to the Adjutant General of Kansas in this letter and describing his reorganization of the unit. In there, he describes that he doesn't believe that that Major Still is going to stay in the military. He says the former Major and A.T. Still. And then he says that James Still will stay on as surgeon. And so this is a little confusing to the Adjutant General, because just prior to this letter, he had written that Andrew Taylor Still was going to be the regimental surgeon. And you can see here he had placed him into a position of regimental surgeon in this letter, promoting him into that position. This is a letter written a month before, in April of 1866, nomination of officers listing A.T. Still as surgeon. A return reply is requested. The Adjutant General is a bit confused because it appears that Colonel Lowe has too many majors in his unit. Here's a closer view of this. This is an important document in A.T. Still's history, because it does show that he was indeed appointed as a regimental surgeon in 1866 in the Kansas militia, after having served as a field officer in 1864. So he'd been a hospital steward in 1861-62, a field officer in 1864, and a regimental surgeon in 1866. So they had an election of officers, and they did this at Willow Springs, Kansas, probably in A.T. Still's cabin. He had a safe house there that the unit met in. Much of the correspondence would have an address of Willow Springs. And this is an area where he had built a cabin into the center of a cornfield where it was not visible, and it became somewhat of a safe house for people to retreat to in the times of raids and different things that were going on at that time, including Quantrell's raid. So they said the headquarters of 21st is having a reorganization meeting, and they're electing all these officers. Absent from this list is Andrew Taylor Still. He has decided not to stay in the military. And it appears that his commander, Sandy Lowe, is trying to talk him into staying, even appoints him as a regimental surgeon, but he does not continue in his military service. He was very proud of his military service. People would often talk to him about his military service. He gave a rousing speech to the unit from Kirksville when it left for World War I, and he remained proud of his Civil War service. Here he is seated in his home at Kirksville in this photo with this missile that someone had brought him from a howitzer. That wasn't from the Civil War probably, but he would display it as a part of his discussions about his service in the war. The Brotherhood of Veterans really starts after the Civil War, and they actually called it the Veteran Brotherhood. And you can see here's an announcement in the newspaper that in Baldwin City, Kansas, there was a meeting held of the Veteran Brotherhood and they called it an encampment, and they elected their officers, and indeed there's a worthy marshal, Dr. Still, elected in Baldwin City, and that is probably Andrew Taylor Still. He's credited with encouragement and inspiration to start a new system of medical care, and has left his military service, but he is a proud veteran and serving in the Veteran Brotherhood. This is the forerunner to the Grand Army of the Republic, the GAR. And so you'll see this ribbon here. That's a GAR ribbon that represents a membership. And so the Veteran Brotherhood name, you won't see it much after the initial start of these brotherhoods, but they later become the Grand Army of the Republic. This ribbon was J.B. Abbott's ribbon, and he was a good, close personal friend of Andrew Taylor Still. And this ribbon is in the Kansas State Historical Society collection and represents the fraternal orders of brotherhood that remained very active for Civil War veterans and all veterans to this day. So this relationship with Sandy Lowe is a very important part of Andrew Taylor's life. And Sandy Lowe, his wife, becomes ill with pneumonia in 1876. And he sends for Andrew Taylor Still to come treat his wife. And there's a description of this in the history of Adair County, Missouri. And this history is presented here on the slide. And Andrew Taylor Still is summoned to the bedside of Sandy Lowe's beloved wife. Now, she has double pneumonia, and generally that was considered fatal. And Andrew Taylor Still was able to successfully treat her. And he stays on in Henry County there at the Lowe home. These two veterans know each other well. They served together on more than one occasion. Here's their discharge papers from 1861, and you'll see they were both discharged at the same time on February 28, 1862 in Harrisonville, Missouri. At the bottom of each of their paperwork there, you'll see that date and location. So they knew each other very well as they served for several months together in 1861 and 62. This will become important paperwork for them because this service is the one that will become recognized by the federal government as their Civil War service, and the period of time for which they will receive their Civil War pension. But it will take them a couple of more decades to actually get that. When he is summoned to the Lowe home, it's at Wadesburg, Missouri. Sandy Lowe has left Kansas. He found a respite, as many abolition citizens of Missouri did in those days of just prior to and during the early Civil War period. They had to leave Missouri, and many of them came over into Kansas, and that's how Sandy Lowe got to know Andrew Taylor Still. Was when he moved to Kansas with his family for safety reasons. He eventually does move back to Missouri in 1866 and turns down an offer to be a brigadier general in Kansas when he does so. But he has farm ground near Wadesburg. It's just across the county line over into Henry County where his farm is, and he has a lot in the city of Wadesburg, probably speculating that that lot would become valuable, which was common in those days, to speculate on claims. But he has some acreage there and a family, and they do subsistence farming there. And when his wife gets sick, he calls for Andrew Taylor Still. This is Edward Still's discharge paperwork, the oldest brother of the Still family. He's also served in the Civil War, and he served in Missouri as a surgeon. You can see here on his paperwork, and he actually is in one of the battles that occurred in Kirksville, Missouri. It is after his Civil War service that he has problems with his back pain. He had gotten thrown from a horse and sustained some back injuries, and unfortunately became addicted to morphine for pain control. And it's Andrew Taylor Still that helps him with his addiction to morphine. Through the use of OMT, he is able to resolve his back condition. And this is Andrew Taylor Still's discharge paperwork from 1860. This is his claim for Civil War pension that he made more than one time, trying to get his Civil War pension. And it's interesting that he and Sandy Lowe would have been together, and in fact they did write witness statements for each other on their Civil War pension claims. I suspect that they were also in communication with other members of the unit who were probably having similar trouble getting their Civil War pensions. And it's not until the federal government passes additional coverage for the Civil War pensions that they actually get their Civil War pensions. And you can see that there's several dates on here. It's not till 1904, May 31st, 1904, that his filing is granted. And you can see it's for a hospital steward, an F Company of the Missouri Home Guard. So Edward is impressed with his brother's ability to treat using musculoskeletal methods, and is so impressed that he decides to be in the first class so he can also learn these treatment methods. And there's a picture of Andrew Taylor Still holding the bone of the skeleton's leg, tibia, and seated next to him on his left is Edward Still, his oldest brother, and he's in the first class at the American School of Osteopathy in 1892. This is a photo from 1895, and in the second class, James Still joins and reconciles with his brother after being against the manipulative medicines and treatment methods that Andrew wanted to use. He is converted to believing that indeed his brother's on to a new excellence in medicine with musculoskeletal methods, and he joins the second class. And this photo is taken in 1895, and it includes both some members of the first class and the second class. So there's Edward, you'll see, seated to the left of the skeleton, Andrew seated to the right of the skeleton, and off to Andrew's right elbow is his second oldest brother, James Still. So the family is able to reconcile and become very active in the development of the American School of Osteopathy, as James Still also has his son go through the school, and Andrew has his children go through the school, as well as most of the physicians from the area that were interested in learning these treatment methods. In this photo, you can see that the Still brothers reconcile, and this is a beautiful story of the Brotherhood of Veterans that involved the Civil War and the trauma of the Civil War, recovery from the pain of the morphine addiction of his brother, and the start of the American School of Osteopathy. I hope you've enjoyed this, and we'll read the article in the DO publication on November 2024, A Brotherhood of Veterans. Thank you.